Hey guys, Bazzy back here, and in today's video, it is that time of year again. It is time to make some predictions for the Stanley Cup playoffs and then run a quick NHL 25 Stanley Cup simulation. So it is the time that we wait for all year long. Round 1 will begin here on Saturday. Cannot wait. Let's go make some picks. The first half of today's video will be going over what I think is going to end up happening in the playoffs, and then the second half, I will be passing it over to the EA simulation and seeing what they think will happen. So let's go jump into NHL 25 and start breaking it all down. Round 1. And honestly, this year, I think all the matchups that we have, I think this is going to be a fantastic round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think all these matchups have the potential to just generate a ton of fun, a ton of interest, and I can't wait to see it all start playing out. So let's start out in the Western Conference. Winnipeg Jets, St. Louis Blues. I don't see St. Louis pulling out an upset here. I think this is the year that the Jets are going to have a pretty decent run in the playoffs. As someone who is from Winnipeg, who has seen their last couple of years, and it's been, rather disappointing in the playoffs. I think this is the year that they do go on a bit of a run. So I think, as expected, I do expect the Jets to outlast the Blues here in round 1. Moving down to the Stars and the Avalanche. So very interesting matchup here, the battle of, Mikko Rantanen more or less here. And honestly, it's a tough one. I think I'm going to probably lean toward the Dallas Stars. They just have such a complete team. They made some amazing additions at the deadline that I think are just going to be too much for Colorado here. Colorado obviously has those star players, has a guy like Landeskog coming back, which is going to be huge for them. But I just don't see Dallas going down in round number 1. Moving over to the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild. This is a bit of a weird playoff matchup, I think. I don't think we've ever seen these two teams face off in the playoffs. And honestly, I don't really know how either team did this year, to be honest with you. I think I'm going to probably lean toward Vegas here. Don't really have a particular reason for it, just other than their insane playoff pedigree here over the past few years. So I could see either team winning, but I think for my predictions here today, I will go with the Vegas Golden Knights. And in the last series here in the Western Conference, another rematch of the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers. What is this, the 4th time that we've seen this matchup here in the past 4 or 5 years? Absolutely insane how these two teams keep matching up. Unfortunately for the LA Kings, I don't see the result being any different here this time around. I do expect the Oilers to move on to round number 2. That is going to round out round 1 in the West. Let's move over to the Eastern Conference, starting with the Washington Capitals taking on the Montreal Canadiens. The last series that was determined here, and honestly a kind of a weird matchup because, we look at the Caps as of a year or two ago, we definitely see they're on the decline. This year they had a fantastic year, and I think really did surprise quite a few people. And same goes for Montreal. I don't know how many people expected them to make the playoffs this year, but they snuck in on the last, real day of the season here and punched their ticket to the playoffs. I do think Washington is going to outhold Montreal here in round 1. I do expect it to be a lot closer than people are thinking. I could easily see this going 6 or 7 games, with Washington just sneaking out a win over Montreal. Moving over to Carolina and New Jersey, and this is going to be a tough series, I think, for the Devils. Had a pretty good regular season, but I just think going up against this Carolina team, I don't think they're going to do super well, especially with the injury to their top player, Jack Hughes. So yeah, if I had to lean toward one of these two teams, I'm definitely going to be going toward the Carolina Hurricanes. Moving over to the series that I think most people here are probably going to be waiting for. The Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Ottawa Senators. The Battle of Ontario is back, finally, after years upon years. And, honestly, I think this is going to be a pretty competitive, pretty tight, very fun series to watch. I do have Toronto coming out of round 1 here. Nothing against the Senators. They have a fantastic young group of guys there, and I think they're going to be a very solid, very fun team to watch here for years upon years, but I still do think Toronto does have the advantage. Then going over to the last series in round number 1, that being my Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Florida Panthers. And honestly, I've been going back and forth on this. They're very even teams. They both have been looking pretty good this year. I think I'm taking the edge with Tampa Bay this year. I know last year in round 1 I didn't pick them to move on, but this year's team just feels a little bit different. The additions they made at the deadline, bringing in Gord, bringing in Bjorkstrand. I believe Bjorkstrand actually is hurt right now, but I still think This team just feels a little bit different, you know, the retool more or less with bringing in Jake Gensel, not signing Stamkos. I don't know. I just see Tampa coming out of round 1 here to face the Toronto Maple Leafs yet again in round number 2. Moving over to the second round of the playoffs. First matchup here, Winnipeg Jets taking on the Dallas Stars. And again, this is going to be fantastic hockey. Two of the top teams in the Central Division. I really do think this, again, like I said it earlier, I said it in round 1, I think this is the year the Jets go on a bit of a run. I could totally see this coming back to bite me here. St. Louis pulls out a huge upset and this, you know, doesn't come to fruition at all. But something is just telling me here to go for Winnipeg. So for that reason, I'm going to have the Jets going on to the conference final. Moving over to the other Western Conference matchup, that being the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Edmonton Oilers. And you know, another series I could see going either way. I do think I'm going to give the advantage to the Edmonton Oilers here. I think just overall the top players outmatch the top players on Vegas. And yeah, I see them facing Winnipeg in the conference finals, which would be a ton of fun to see those two Canadian teams match up. Then going over to the other side of the bracket, the Washington Capitals taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. I think this is probably where you see Washington bow out. I think Carolina has the better just overall team than Washington. Like I said, I know Washington went on a huge resurgent run this year and really surprised a lot of people, but I just think Carolina has the tools to get by them here in round number 2. And then going over to Leafs and Lightning yet again, and unfortunately for myself, I do see Toronto probably taking this here. I know that is going to be a crazy hot take here, seeing Toronto go back to the conference finals. They have yet to do it in the real world, and I don't know. I could see it going either way, but this is, you know, potentially a pick here that I could regret looking back on. Moving on to round number 3, we are down to 4 teams. That's funny, 3 of them turned out to be Canadians, so, you know, who knows? Would love to see it in real life. Does it happen? Probably not, but I guess we'll find out here shortly. First off, Oilers and Jets. Like I said, I think this is the year the Jets go on a bit of a run. I think they have a more complete team than Edmonton. Would it surprise me if Edmonton, you know, channels the 80s and 90s where they're constantly eliminating the Jets in the playoffs? No, that wouldn't surprise me at all. They have Connor McDavid, they have Leon Draisaitl, they have all the top talent in the world, but I just think the Jets team matches up as more of a complete team on paper, so I have the Jets going on to the Stanley Cup final. And then going over to Carolina and Toronto, I'm sorry Leafs fans, but I think I'm going to give the edge here to the Carolina Hurricanes. Once again, I just like the makeup of their roster, and I don't know, I think the fairy tale story here comes to an end for the Leafs. And then Stanley Cup Finals, it comes down to 2. It comes down to Winnipeg and Carolina. And, you know, honestly, it's like so many of these matchups. Both these teams on paper look so stacked and easily could go either way. I think I'm going to probably give the edge to Carolina here. I don't know, just kind of looking at how these teams have matched up in the past, and Carolina's always played Winnipeg pretty good, at least to my knowledge, my memory here. I never really liked that matchup there for the Jets, and yeah, I don't know, it's so hard to say. The city would be going insane in the peg. If they did make the Stanley Cup Finals, those whiteout parties would be insane. Does it happen though? I don't see it, unfortunately, at this year. So locking it in, Carolina is my Stanley Cup champion. But that is going to do it for my predictions here today. Like I said, I'm going to pass it over to the EA Sports simulation here, and we're going to see what happens in their NHL 25 Stanley Cup playoff simulation. So I will throw it over to that.